Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me. I'm the Fuzz, here to entertain you. So, I want to do this one last video before there is an upcoming balance patch that's coming in about a week or so. So I want to throw this out once more. Some of the cards which still kind of bother me because, whoops, didn't mean to do that. Because they just, I don't know, well, they bother me. I think they're kind of bad for the game in some way or another. Some of them are obviously problematic. Others are kind of sleepers, if you will. But basically, I'm just going to kick it off right here. There's actually two cards I want to add to this list. I'll go over them at the end. So we got Jelica. So my problem with this card is it's just a very boring way to win the game. You get 3 angels on the board. Boom, you win. That sucks, honestly. I think a much cooler way to use this card would be that if you control 3 angels, you activate this and you get, like, say, you gain 10 life, you draw 3 cards, and I don't know, summon some angel for free out of your deck. Basically a really powerful effect, but not instantly winning the game. That's a difference, because angels have the ability to just kind of sit on the back row and do nothing, and then eventually they just play this card and they win. They don't even attack you. They just sit back forever, and that's not really a way I want to lose or even win a game. So I think if I were to change this card, don't make it cost 4 aspect, make it cost 3 aspects, you know, maybe 4 mana, cooldown of like 4 or something. If you control 3 angels, you know, draw 3 cards, gain 5 life or something, and then like put an angel on the board from your deck or something. You know, really, really powerful, but not game ending. I think that would be cool. Militia, honestly, this card doesn't need to exist in the collection. It's fine as a token, you know, get rid of it. In fact, I don't understand why the devs removed the Musketeer in favor of the Spellbreaker instead of this card, because this card is never going to be played, because you can just make it with a hero power. So, you know, George the Militia, I'm not even sure if his name is George, but you can kind of make that assumption. You know, it's kind of an icon for Spellweaver. It is, you know, hell, it's right in this video. I put some sunglasses on him, but it doesn't do anything as a card, and you could use that spot for a different card. Yeah, I think they'll be cool. Obelisk of Unity. This card, I mean, at the moment, I wouldn't expect anything to happen to this card, but I think this is a prime candidate for the first colorless card or aspectless card, because the purpose of this is to let you multicolor. Why should only blue be allowed to do this? It makes sense that anybody should be able to do this. It is legendary, so you can't abuse it. You're not going to put 4 of them in your deck, probably. You just put like 1 or 2, you know, when you get to throw it out. Now you can kind of multicolor. That'd be cool. I don't see any reason why blue should be the only one that can do this. They already have New Horizons. But that's obviously a topic for another day when colorless cards do come out, but that's not going to happen for some time. But when it does, I think Obelisk could definitely be made a colorless card and then give Wisdom something else. Maybe like a decent 2-drop that's not overpowered like the Ruinincarnate. Elven Sanctuary. My problem with this card is that +1/+2 is much too strong of an effect for 1 mana. I mean, it's almost like an Ambush Strike. And it costs 1 mana as well, and you don't even have to have Ambush Strike in your hand. Yes, Ambush Strike is instant, but my god, if this was instant, how stupid would that be? The point is, you can activate it very early, and +1/+2 lets your already fast elves overcome even bigger threats. I mean, one of the worst things is, if you are an elf player and you play an elf scout, the 1/1 with 4 speed, if you have this hero power and your opponent answers with either his own elf scout or a coined warrior, you just use this and kill it off for free. And that doesn't seem fair to me. I think this is available a little bit too soon, and it's a little bit too strong. I think +1/1 would be just fine. +1/+2 seems a little bit over the top. Naveh. Despite the fact that she was recently nerfed, in that the cooldown is now 4 instead of 3, I think the hero power itself is just kind of overpowered. Giving everything you have Swift is pretty silly. You don't really see it early on, but later, once you've accumulated some mana, you could easily just play like 7 mana worth of creatures, like 7 damage on the board, give them all swift, and just ridiculous burst damage from hand. And often, because your elves are so fast, your opponent can't even do anything about it. Or hell, you have Elf Commander, which makes your elves unblockable anyway. So I think this hero power would be a little bit more balanced if it gave like the first creature you play swift, but then of course you could reduce its cooldown, right? Maybe back to 3. I don't know about 2. 2 might be too generous. Maybe 2 would be too generous. I think even at 3 will be fine. I think the only thing that would be a little bit sad is that Brothers in Arms would become kind of terrible, because the only reason Brother in Arms is even played at all is because now this ability was redesigned along with Brothers in Arms to allow both the brothers to have swift. But I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. There's just more ways to push in a lot of damage really quickly. It's basically 4 damage for 2 mana, which is a little bit aggressive. Advanced naveh is basically the same thing, but it's like in the opposite side of the spectrum, where it's really, really, really slow, but it gets really, really silly the more mana you have. Originally, well, not originally, there was a period where this ability cost 1 mana to start, which means the shenanigans started 1 turn earlier. And to actually use this ability properly, you have to have 3 aspects, of course, and you have to have at least like 4 mana so that you can play like 2 Treants or something, or 2 2-mana creatures, so you draw 2 cards basically for free. Now that's turn 6, so that's a bit late, and all it does is draw you 2 cards for 0 mana, which is not really all that big of a deal. But every turn after that, let's say 3 turns later, when you have 7 mana, you could draw 5 cards if you play 5 creatures with it. And it gets really silly. Now, I like the idea, but I do think it should be capped at maybe like 3 creatures or something. You could even reduce the cost back to 1, but limit it at like 3 creatures, so you don't get to just keep playing stuff. And it gets really, really silly with Nienna. When the top card of your deck is an elf, you just play that for less mana, and you draw a card. So it's like you just draw 2 cards. There was a deck based on this idea when the hero power cost 1. We just played something like Summoner Druid and the Moon Priestess, the elves that ramp your mana, and then you use the hero power, and then you just got out ridiculous turns because you just kept playing creatures off the top for less mana, and just as an example, I've mentioned this before. I've seen a game where my opponent had 1 creature, and I played Silencer. The Silencer that cancels cards. He activated the hero power. By the end of the turn, my Silencer was gone. His hand size has increased, and he had like 5 creatures on the board. Yeah. So, something like that. I mean, it's not really played right now because it's kind of slow, and aggressive decks like Dominion and Rage and Elves are kind of common, and you just get beaten down. You never even survive long enough to make use of this power, which is a shame because I like it. I like drawing cards. Summoner Druid, this bad boy got 2 health given to him for reasons I cannot even begin to fathom. He was not weak. Maybe this was a preemptive change to make Blood-Seeking Mutant not kill this guy instantly. But this guy generates just a little bit too much tempo. When you play him, you can immediately play a 2-mana creature for free. So it's as if he cost 0 mana, right? And the next turn, you can play basically 2 more mana worth of creatures. So he generates 4 mana by himself and allows you to get out ridiculous turns, swarming the board really quickly, and it can get really silly sometimes. And now that he's got 2 health, he actually fights a little bit better, because you can just put him in the front once he's used his abilities. So I kind of don't like that aspect. I would probably prefer this card to be like scaled up, meaning like more expensive but also bigger, and maybe more energy. Like maybe make him a 2-aspect card, but to give him like 3 energy or something, and make him a 1/3 as well. It'd be pretty cool. But as it is, he just helps the aggressiveness be more aggressive, and that's not very interesting. Basic Zash basically sucks ass, and he sucked ever since his original hero power, which was deal 1 damage, was taken away from him. This basically has one purpose, and that is to just, be aggressive, stop a blocker and hit face. And I think there's an opportunity here to give Rage a unique mechanic in the form of burning. You mark a creature to be burned, and a creature that's burned takes like double damage from every source, or just like 1 or 2 more damage from every source. This would give Rage the ability to deal with big creatures, because they currently don't have that. if they run up against a 10-10 incarnate, what are they going to do? Double Dragonfire? That's horrible. So I think that would make for a more interesting hero power than just this. Because, you know, past the early game, this is pretty awful. This is actually, I think, the worst hero power in the game right now. Advanced Despina. I think this may be my least favorite hero power, because I don't like stealing creatures from the opponent. Okay, it's kind of fun when you do it, but then when it's done to you, you realize just how annoying that is. Because it allows the Despina to essentially adapt to any situation. If they're facing a mill deck, you steal their vultures and you mill them right back. Or you unmill yourself. You can steal unicorns and gnomes to counter artifacts and spells. And just overall, taking your opponent's biggest creature and using them against them feels like you're punishing them for running big cards. And other than Nature, who can use Tornado Outbreak, there is not really a good recourse to this. They just take your biggest creature and you have to deal with them. That's not really very much fun. And this has always been the way the Despina worked. The only differences were exactly how she steals it and what decides how big that creature is. So I think this just needs a complete redesign. I'm not sure what, but I'm sure the developers have some ideas for other heroes. Maybe one of them could be used in the place of this, because this is not much fun. Basic Despina. It's a cool ability, but the only thing it can lead to is something broken. Right now it isn't broken, mostly because, well, there isn't really anything great to do with the mana, except the dragon burn combo, where you play a dragon and then probably use like one of its ability for 4 mana, and then you reload your mana and you can use the ability like 2 times more. Basically burn your opponent for like 15 damage. Or if you have 14 mana, you can burn them for 25 damage. But it's still just a little bit broken, and over time this can only become more broken. But I don't really have a suggestion for how to fix this right now. I think the concept is cool, like refilling your mana, but I think it's very, very dangerous. Power Lustincarnate. This should be pretty straightforward. This card is dumb. It's way too powerful. It has a huge stat line. It can get really fast, and it doesn't require any work. But not just that. The fact that it's so powerful makes the minion matchups dumb, because Advanced Despina can steal this from you, and now you have to deal with it. Helm can take it from you, and now you're screwed because you're facing this huge creature. So its huge power level is a problem twofold. And I can't even count how many Trials games I've won because of this card. You just play like 2 of them, they're like 7/7s, when your opponent can't do anything. You just beat him down. The idea of being based off, mana crystals, interacting with your mana crystals, that's cool, but it can't be this good. A suggestion was floated on the forums to make it like it only gains power when you actually gain a mana crystal. So let's say if it's a 3/3 to start, then when you go up a mana, it's a 4/4, and then maybe later it's a 5/5. So you could still get it to a decent size, but it's not so easy. So I think something like that should happen, so that this card is not just like the defining card. Speaking of defining cards, Mr. Win-Seeking Mutant, as I've come to call it, and it's started to catch on, has become paradoxically even more obnoxious than before due to its reduced mana cost. Now it comes down on turn 4 and has an immediate and decisive impact on the board. It makes 1 health creatures just awful because he instantly kills them and becomes a 3/4. Man, I don't know about Mr. Mutant. I think if they're going to keep it at this mana cost, they have to not let it grow, probably. Because it's just, if you compare it to like Library Guards, like Library Guards is the same sized body, but you draw a card and it's faster, but this, is kind of doubles as removal. It's cool. At the very least, you have to reduce his health by 1. There is no reason for this card to be a 2/3 and a 3/4 when it grows. Absolutely no reason. And honestly, I think maybe there's no reason for this card to be the way it is. But again, I don't really have a great idea on what to do with this one. But if they just lower its health to 2, it probably will be a lot less oppressive. But it would still be pretty nasty, because you'd always be scared to play 1 health creatures, because this thing is just, it just punishes you for doing so. And that's a shame. Helm of Dominion is another card that basically was nerfed, but not really, because people just run Dominion now. Since Dominion as a whole got buffed, you now just run mostly Dominion, and so Helm is still in your deck, and it's still the best removal in the game. You remove every creature, and you now control that creature, so your opponent has to do something about it. Nature can deal with it because of Tornado Outbreak, and Corruption kind of can deal with it, but not really. I mean, the Herald is a bit inefficient. And of course, non-power engineer, but anything else, it makes Angels suck, it makes Phoenix suck, it makes Dominion Incarnate kind of dangerous. I think this card needs it needs just a redesign. Just stealing a creature is kind of lame. Even though cards like this exist in like Magic the Gathering, and there is a balancing factor here by the fact that the creature gets progressively weaker, but the thing is, that doesn't matter. You just use it as removal if nothing else. So maybe this card wouldn't feel as silly if it wasn't for the fact that Incarnate is as ridiculous as it is. But just overall, having like your badass creature stolen by this is just kind of lame. Especially since it's only 4 mana. It's not exactly an expensive card to play. I don't know. Any ideas on this are appreciated. Cataclysm. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about this. I think my main issue with it is the fact that you can just run 4 of it, and it's such a huge impact because it resets the board completely. No other card can do that. Just single-handedly reset the board. And it means that you can always come back from behind when you're playing Dominion, and Dominion is already the faction that has the Mutant, the Incarnate, the Helm, Karthus, Drayla, all these ridiculous cards, and now it also has Cataclysm. Now, this card probably should exist in some way. It probably should be 3 aspects, considering, you know, how powerful the effect is, to maybe discourage people from running like several. But at the same time, if we nerf Cataclysm, we need some other form of board clears, so aggression just isn't all over the place. You need some way to stop elves, you know, goblins or whatever. Fire Blast stops goblins and soldiers to an extent, but not elves, because a lot of them have 2 health. So we need Cataclysm to be present, at least in spirit. Well, we need some kind of board clears besides what we have. But as it is, for now, I guess we're stuck with it. Sanctum of the Void. This card is really, really lame to face in Trials because free removal every 3 turns is ridiculous. If your opponent has this and you don't, if you're not winning, you're going to lose because he can just play the attrition game by being able to get a freebie off of you every 3 turns. And if you don't have a power that can counteract it, like Elrike, which summons creatures back, you kind of get screwed. And especially when the board is already empty, it discourages you from playing anything because whatever you play could be killed by this. And if you think you're going to be clever by playing your big creature alongside a small creature, well, that's what Noxious Fumes is for. They'll Noxious the small creature, and then they'll kill your bigger creature. And if it's advanced Nephoros, because it most likely will be, he'll then resurrect it back on his side of the board. So yeah, bit silly, this card. I don't know, I guess this effect is not terrible. Maybe just make it cost more mana. But that wouldn't actually necessarily even help that much because late game you end up having like 9, 10 mana, 12 mana. So whether it costs 2 or 3 doesn't make that much of a difference. But free kills like that, I think are a bit too much. I do think if this, like, you could add an effect on top of this that says, you know, your opponent sacrifices a creature and gains 4 life, right? Or something like that. So it's not just pure value for you. Yeah, give your opponent 4 life or something. That would be cool. Or life equal to the mana cost plus levels. I think that would make it a lot less annoying to deal with. Basic Nepharos, much like basic Zash, just kind of sucks. The hero power just doesn't do enough. The speed manipulation is cool, but it only lasts until the end of your turn. I think this ability should at least last for your opponent's turn, so it actually has a meaningful impact on the board. Because as it is, there's no reason to run this guy. Like, even if you're being aggressive, you probably are better off with just like Enoch or something, or even advanced Nepharos, because of the interactions with Succubus. This guy just kind of sucks. And it's a shame because I like Corruption, and I wish basic Corruption had just a simpler power. Hell, I think one of the simplest powers this could and should have is the Haunted Cemetery, which means you pay 1 mana. If your opponent loses a creature this turn, you get a Zombie Legionnaire. That seems like a perfect hero power for the basic Nepharos, but as it is the way it is. I do hope heroes eventually get a little bit more attention so that you don't have a situation where some of them are just straight up garbage, which basically is what I think of this guy. And what else? I was not going to talk about this. Splitting Headaches. Honestly, you could just remove this card from the game. Mass discard is not fun. And this card has no other effect, unlike Mesmerizing Spirit, which at least is a flying creature, and so it has an effect on the game. This card, now, it used to cost 2 mana. It was very lame when several of them were played in a row, discarding your entire hand. It was made 3 to try to discourage it, but honestly, why not just remove it and replace it with something else? Bezarok, maybe? Oh, yeah, maybe. Nah, I'm not really holding up much hope, but hey. It is what it is. So anyways, that is... I have the Harpy here, but I'm going to talk about it separately. There's also a few cards I wanted to mention, which are not a problem right now, but I think could eventually become a problem, just based on the kind of cards that will be in the game eventually. And the first is Harpy. Actually, wait, there's one more card I want to mention that doesn't get enough attention. Ruinincarnate, I think, is also a bit of a problem. While it's not as powerful as the Power Lustincarnate, the fact of the matter is it grows by itself, and it's really not hard to get him up to like 6 energy, and it becomes just a huge beat stick that's very easy to get on the board, because he's a 2-drop. If you play Alright and you played this guy, he's a 3/3 on turn 2 when you play him. That's a bit hard to handle, and he's gonna grow even bigger, so... I like the card. I actually really like... I like that it's in the game, but I don't think it should grow by itself. You should be required to put a little bit of work into him, instead of just it growing by itself, because that can get out of control. I mean, I actually, at the time of recording, am in the middle of a Trials run where I have 3 of them, and they just rock. You can play one on turn 2, play one on turn 3, and they just grow out of control really fast, and sometimes your opponent just can't do anything about it, because hard removal is kind of hard to come by. Dominion has it, sure, but other than that, Order has a little bit. But the point is, it's very easy to just get overrun by these guys, and I don't want that to be the case. I'm not going to mention the other incarnates because I haven't really seen them have any particular impact. But actually, if we're on the subject of incarnates, because not all of them are like overpowered, some I think are actually underpowered. So this guy's interesting because it could potentially be a 4/4, but that's not until late game. I actually kind of like it in that it's a crappy 1-drop. Well, kind of so-so. That has late game potential. If you play 4 Order, yeah, it'll be a 4/4. That's really good. But that is late game, right? So it's not like you're getting beaten down by huge creatures immediately. So I actually don't have a problem with it that much, even though maybe it could be a little bit too good, but it is limited to purely Order decks, because if you're not running purely an Order deck, you're not going to get much use out of it. This thing, honestly, I think just needs a buff. I think it's too weak. It's the most expensive incarnate, and it's also the weakest. Isn't that weird? It requires 3 aspects, and yes, it can be really big, but you have to have a big board. The effect where it returns creatures back to your hand, that's really cool. I like that, but I think you could make this cost 2 mana, honestly, and it'd be just fine. Or give it 3 speed or something, because at the moment, there's not much reason to run it. It's very clunky, and if you don't have a board, it's worthless. It's a 1/1. It's going to get killed immediately. So most of the time, a Sun Chaser Aura would have a more profound impact on the board than this. And that's a shame. I want to run this card. I want to use this lady creature thingy. I don't know. It's not even human, right? Whatever. And I already covered Power Lust, and I'm mostly okay with this one, and I'm okay with the Rage Incarnate as well. But anyways, back to cards which I think could be a problem. We've got Burning Rage. This card got a big buff. It's not currently broken, but that's only because the spells in Rage aren't very good. In fact, we're going to take a look at them right now. So these are all the Rage spells right now, right? So these are the things you can play to draw a card. Well, let's see. Ruination is trash. This is really expensive, but you could technically run it. Fire Blast is... okay, that's fair enough, but it's still 3 mana. Massive Assault you could use, but it has no immediate impact on the board by itself. Fireball, okay, we'll give you that, and we'll give you Word of Fire. Detonate sucks, and Boiling Blood mostly sucks. So realistically, you can only run a few of these, and a lot of the spells that you could run are just expensive. Fireball and Fire Blast cost 3 mana. You can only play Word of Fire if there's creatures to hit, and Dragonfire is really pricey, so it's basically limited by the fact that you just don't have much to work with. But if, let's say, Rage got a spell, something like 1 mana deal 2 damage to a minion, it could get a lot better all of a sudden, because their board control potential will be amazing. They can control the board with Word of Fire and that card. Let's just call it Flame Spark or something, and they draw a lot of cards and they ramp and speed towards their combo. So Burning Rage, I think, at any time could become overpowered. And while we're at it, Dark Portal essentially is in the same category, where right now the demons are decent. I mean, they got a little bit worse because of all the Dominion shenanigans, but demons are strong, decent, but not broken, because it's easy enough to kill yourself with this card. But I mean, if there's like any more good demons at it, it could become really insane really quickly. So I think developers have to be careful about adding demons. Luckily, that's not so hard. I mean, you don't have to add demons if you don't want to, whereas you probably will have to add rage spells one way or the other. So this is probably less of a problem overall. And next up, we've got the Bloodwill Matriarch. It's actually not seeing a whole lot of play, but well, mostly because with the nerf to Fireball, there's not that many things she can actually steal to use against you, but it's the kind of card that actually can be really nasty. If you've ever faced it in Trials, you know how painful she is. And how powerful she is depends on the cards she has to work with. So again, the more spells that cost 2 or less are released, the more powerful this will become, because it'll be able to be played and used instantly. So when Splitting Headaches, for instance, was 2 mana, you just play her and your opponent is forced to discard 2. It was pretty nasty. I don't actually think she's that much of a problem, but it's something to keep in mind. Maybe. We'll have to see in the future. Anyways, that concludes my list of things I wanted to talk about. A lot of these were already mentioned and were already discussed, but I just want to touch on them because, well, I want this game to do well, right? And I want the game to be balanced as much as possible. Make sure, you know, every faction has cool stuff to work with, because right now it feels like it's just Dominion everywhere, because they have like the best everything. They got way too many buffs. But you know what? I'm optimistic, because our developers have shown that they respond quickly to these kinds of things. I mean, they patched the game and changed the game more than any other game I've ever seen. I think they've done more like nerfs and patches in like a 4-month period than Hearthstone has done like in its entire career. So if there's problems, they'll fix them. They're not afraid to make frequent changes, and that's good. They're willing to experiment, they're willing to take a risk, and sooner or later they're gonna hit gold. And I hope they do. I hope this game succeeds, because it's fun. You know, it feels like a more, not even more casual, but a more relaxed version of like Magic the Gathering, where you don't have to read like paragraphs on every card or consider that at any point any ability could be activated, and that's just really lame. Anyways, that's enough for me complaining and rambling about everything. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video, or on my stream. I know you're listening. See you guys.